Between school, your friends, and social media, answers are everywhere. But where can you find the truth? Welcome to the Well StudentCast. We're asking for a friend so that you don't have to.
What's up, party people? We are back at the Well StudentCast asking questions for friends so you don't have to. My name is Brynn, and Ko is out of town, but I do have other friends with me today. What's up, guys?
What's up, everybody? I'm Brett.
What's up? My name is Sawyer.
So fun. These are two of my good friends, and they are life group leaders with us on high school Wednesday nights. That was the weirdest way to phrase that, but
The only night.
yeah. Wednesday nights with high schoolers. But we're so stoked to have them here with us. And we've just been talking about, even before we started recording, kind of this thing that we've been seeing in our own lives, but also hearing from students, is this feeling of just like, I feel really alone, and asking this question of like, how do I find community and navigate this loneliness that I'm feeling as I'm searching for it? And so I'm excited for us to dive into that today. But before we get started, just want to acknowledge if you're feeling that, that's really hard. And so we're not here to be like, hey, here's the 5 steps for you to make friends. Like that's not what we're here to do, but just kind of open the conversation and be like, hey, it's really hard if you're feeling this. Here's some ways that we've walked through seasons like this, and just hope that you walk away encouraged. But have you guys ever felt a season of just being like, man, I feel really lonely and I really desire this community that we talk about in the church, but I just don't know how to find it?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. And just to reiterate what Brynn said, if you guys are listening to this and you are feeling lonely, you are not alone in that. Mm-hmm. Everyone around this table has felt that or is feeling that at some point in their lives. And so we're here to just talk to you guys about that and figure out how God has walked with us in those seasons. And so one that really sticks out to me is going into my freshman year of college, which, you know, all you guys are probably going to do at some point, and some of you are, you know, coming pretty close to that point. And I chose to go to a pretty big school, and I'm from Clovis, and I felt like I knew everybody here, and just had really solid community at the Well and at Buchanan, and it was a great time. And then I decided to go to Arizona State. I don't really know why, but I went there. And for those of you who don't know, Arizona State is the biggest school in the United States. So you would think that there is plenty of community there. And I struggled early on. There was definitely community, and I'm grateful to God that He shielded me a lot from some of the negative stuff that is there. And Arizona State certainly has a reputation, but I think what's at Arizona State is at all colleges. So just be mindful of that, those going into college. But I was really, really lonely. I missed my family. I had gone there with 2 friends who were athletes, thought I would see them a lot, but they were athletes. They were on a completely different schedule. My girlfriend had just broke up with me when I got there. Just like, this is real life stuff, you know, and it's like, it feels like your whole world's caving in. And I just remember like crying myself to sleep. I put in my praying like, Lord, please give me community. I don't want to leave, but I'm ready to leave. But I feel like I'm called here. Anyways, I put in my transfers to go to Point Loma, met with my counselor, had my classes. And like right before I was about to leave my sophomore year, God gave me the community of Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And I wasn't an athlete there. And I had this sense of not, I had the opportunity to be part FCA before that, but I felt kind of shame. Like, I'm not an athlete anymore. I really wanted to be, but I wasn't. So, and these are the feelings you guys will feel when you're lonely and the enemy's in your head telling you to isolate yourself. Yeah. And it's a deep, dark hole. And for me, that was like, dude, you can't be a leader in FCA. You're not even an athlete yourself. And then I had a mentor, we kind of connected, and he helped foster that relationship with FCA, and it just like blew up. And so that was my experience with loneliness. And the main caveat of that was stepping out in faith and not believing the lies that you're not good enough to do this, and that there isn't community here. There's community everywhere. There's Christians, there's believers. God's gonna move where He wants to move, and often in dark places, like, God's there. There's gonna be light. So that's my story of loneliness.
So good.
Yeah, I love that, Brett. I think for me, I think most of my life, I felt more loneliness than I did feeling known by others. And so this is a pretty familiar topic for me. In between sophomore and junior year of high school, wasn't feeling connected, didn't have a lot of good friends. And so I transferred schools actually. And when I got to this new school, I was hoping for a new start, new friends, new community, right? All these good things that we want. But I just found myself getting connected to just a lot of negative influences on me, a lot of not great friends. And I started going down the path. And that's kind of where my story starts of just this deep desire to be known by others. But the ironic part of where I was at the time was I was very fake with multiple different friend groups, with different family members. And so I was just kind of living this lie of different identities with different people. And so because I was just desired so much to be known by everybody, but the ironic part, like I said, was I was being so fake with everybody. And I just wanted to be whoever they wanted me to be. Because I just had this deep internal longing, and I didn't know it at the time, but I just had this deep longing to be known and to be myself. But I felt like I could never present that to people because it wouldn't be accepted. And so I think one thing that I learned, and I reflect on it now, and I wish I would have known earlier, is that the quality of friends and quality of community is a lot more important than the quantity. At that time, I was so just dialed in on how many friends can I get? How many acquaintances? How many girls can I talk to? All of these different things of just the amount of people that think that they can know me. And so again, that kind of just where I was my junior and senior year of high school. And that just created a lot of bad habits in my mindset of how I made friends, how I connected with people, and just a lot of bad habits of going to parties, getting involved with things that I shouldn't have been. And so that carried through college. And so the encouragement there, which I didn't find out till later, senior year of college, was I just wanted to be known by somebody. And I felt like the Lord didn't know me. I grew up in a church, felt like the Lord didn't know me and that he was shameful of me. But I realized after one church service, man, I went and sat in my car after and I bawled my eyes out. We're talking ugly tears. I'll be the first to admit to that.
The whale noise.
Yes, exactly. You can't breathe. You got the snot bubbles, everything terrible. And so I just felt so much conviction in that moment because I was like, I'm not known by anybody. And so I called up my old youth pastor. I was like, hey, man, I need help in life. I want to know Christ again. And he was like, yeah, let's sit down. Let's grab some coffee. And so I just word vomited all of my life to him, everything.
Just vomited.
Just vomited everywhere. Sorry. Should have chose a better word there. But I just like, and that was the only moment in my life up until that point where I felt truly known by somebody. And man, that was so special because he showed me so much compassion in that moment. And at that time, I was like, this is what I desire in friends. Yeah. Not me just being fake and presenting whoever I want to be to them. And it's so difficult to be known by somebody because that is a tall task of being vulnerable with them, right?
Yeah.
And man, we never want to do that. Oh man, we never want to talk about our struggles with others. But there's so much value in just being known, being seen, and being loved by somebody else.
Yeah.
And so that's just kind of been my experience with it. And a lot of that is stuff I wish I would have learned earlier in life.
Totally. It's so good. I feel like while you guys were talking, I mean, I feel like for me, and just full honesty, what's funny is I feel like I'm surrounded by people all the time, but I feel like loneliness is like a pretty consistent struggle for me. And when I think about it, I'm like, man, like, I have great people around me, but a lot of the issue for me is this like presentation of false self. And so I'll put the pressure on myself to be like, it doesn't matter what the morning looked like or like how I'm doing, but just like show up and smile and be like, what's up, party people? Everything's great, like whatever. And then I'll leave and I'll be like, I had the people there, but I don't feel loved or known because I don't feel like they actually are seeing me. And so that's been like a pretty big wrestle for me over the past few years is like, what does it look like just to show up authentically myself and allow people to see me and love me? And so I think while you guys were talking, that was something that was even just coming to my own mind of like, a false self can't be loved or known by people around them. And then I think we even present ourselves to the Lord with that false self sometimes and just being like, okay, Lord, like I'm doing what I need to do and I'm checking the boxes and whatever, but we don't allow ourselves to feel known by him. And so that was kind of the first thing that came to my mind. But then also just those like expectations that we have of community and kind of the picture that we have of like, in high school, I thought it was going to be this like friend group of however many of us that did everything together and we're just like rocking and rolling all the time. And so for you guys, I'm just curious, what do you think are kind of some expectations that we can have on what community looks like that can stand in the way of feeling or like combating that feeling of loneliness?
Yeah, if I can just say really quick too, I think it's important that we make sure that we're defining community, because I think we kind of in the church, we take the word for granted and we just assume community is good. Community can show up in our lives in bad ways as well. And I would say that a lot of my community has been teammates throughout my life because I've always grown up playing sports. And man, I have not had a lot of believers through teammates in my life. And those were the people I was around so much. I played soccer in college and I maybe had 2 Christian believers on my team throughout my 4 years of college. And so those are the people I'm around, trauma bonding with. And like, it's the reality of it. That's not good community. So I think the definition of, and I'd be curious what you guys think, like, what does good community look like in our lives?
Yeah, I agree. I come from an athletic background and being on a lot of teams, and, generally there's a lot of cussing. There's a lot of like, messing with each other. And it can be very like just discouraging to be part of, especially if you're going through stuff in your own personal life aside from that, and that can get clouded. When I think of community, I think of like last night. Last night we had an amazing high school WSM worship session. Who's the guy who leads it? He's
Boston.
He's this incredible. Dude, Boston, if you're listening, you're amazing, man. And we're singing "Oh Come to the Altar," and we're kind of like in the bridge, and then he, steps away from the mic and lets everybody sing, and you hear all the voices of this. And I'm getting chills just thinking about it. But this is community. These are people who are like-minded and on mission for Christ. This feels safe. This feels good. This feels like we're doing the work of Christ. We're living a life worthy of the calling. And so when I think of community, I think of that. However, we are also called to be in those circles where we can be a light in darkness, but we can't find our identity in those communities because it'll be a false sense of who we are, and we'll be fed that as well.
Yeah. I think like healthy community looks like people who love the Lord more than they love you. And then like out of that are going to point you to him, and love you in a different way than people who don't know him can. And again, doesn't mean that you can't have friends that don't love the Lord. Some of my like dearest friends don't know him, and they love me in the best way they know how to, but it's different than my people in my life who love the Lord. And I just think of like, even just recently, some seasons of being like, I don't want to like show up to the next thing. And like, I don't know what to do. And those people you call in those moments, who like, you can just be like, I don't have much left to give. And I feel like the people who've been like true community in this season have been like, hey, like, can I remind you what the Lord says about you? And like, I'm going to pray for you because you don't feel like you can like bring yourself to that right now. And I'm going to show up and tell you to like, hey, you're taking tomorrow off work, like telling you the hard truths that you need to hear. But I think some of that misconception is that doesn't have to be that you have 10 of those people for it to be your community. Like, I always thought that it would be like, I'm going to have a life group of which now, like, I do have a really great life group, but for a long time, it felt like I need to have like this circle of like 10 to 15 of us that all do that intimately with each other. When really I feel like just like praying for the Lord to reveal one person to do that with you, whether it's a mentor or someone at your school or whatever, but just praying for that one. And so how for you guys, do you guys feel like you have that one that you walk that out with?
Yeah, definitely. That goes a lot into my story, what I was talking about earlier. Senior year, when I went to my old youth pastor, him and maybe 2 other friends I had in my life. And before that, I was hanging out with my teammates consistently, hanging out with a lot of other friends just in college. And so I stopped getting invited to stuff because they started seeing change in me. I was not getting involved in the things that they were. And so that senior year of college, I probably lost about 95% of my friends. And that was tough. And that's where I felt, but it was weird because that's where I felt the most known, because those handful of people that were in my life, man, they knew me. They knew me to my core, and they knew what I was struggling with. and they knew what I was going through. And when they saw me some days, they'd say, dude, why are you having such a good day? Why are you having a bad day? Like they would just know me based off of seeing me. And that to me, those few people just felt 1,000 times better than having teammates on teammates, friends on friends who just know of you enough to call you friend, right? So I think it's so important. Again, like I said earlier, it's not about how many friends you have or how many people you have or this big group that you feel like you need to call a life group. It's just about those who intimately know you, and you both can be vulnerable and honest with each other in life and as we're going through everything, right? So I think just the numbers there doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm a big believer in mentorship and having a mentor and being a mentor to someone. And if you're a sophomore in high school listening right now, you can be a mentor to someone, whether that's a 6th, 7th, 8th grade kid. You've lived a little bit more life. You can
go serve in like the kids ministry.
Go serve in kids ministry.
Yeah.
Plug but that is such a rich time to be in when you can be poured into and pour into someone else. It is so fulfilling and gratifying. And so since high school, I think my dad instilled that in me to just like reach out to like, and if you're a man in the room or listening, like good men need good men and good women need good women. And so I reached out to a guy that I really respected, and I think, and said, hey, would you take me out to lunch? You know, and I can look back at that conversation and see the communities I've been able to be part of that have stemmed from reaching out to that guy for lunch. And then we would meet every Wednesday. And then, I can trace so many people in my life that I talk to on a daily, weekly basis that stem from a conversation with that guy. And so if I have any encouragement, it's reach out to someone. Yeah. Reach out to, you don't even have to know him that well, but know that he's walking with the Lord or she is walking with the Lord, and that, that they're willing, to pour into you. I guess that they've got so bandwidth too. Usually people like talking to younger kids. They think they've got a bunch of wisdom and
so
smart
good.
And stuff. So,
well, and I think that would be my last encouragement too, that I hope you've heard in like all of our own stories, is that a lot of this has looked like us stepping out in faith to be like, not 100%. In our own power, by any means. I feel like when I've made certain calls, it's like Brett talked about earlier, having a lot of those moments of like, I don't feel like I have a lot of lies that the enemy's saying that are standing in the way of me wanting to do this, then that could get in the way. But I'm going to choose to trust what the Lord says about me in his word. And like, he desires for us to have community. And so I'm going to step out in faith and say like, okay, I'm feeling lonely. Even I feel like my current life group stemmed from that, where I was like, I feel this sense of like longing for community. And I can sit and wait for someone else to invite me into theirs. Or I can say like, I'm feeling this, so maybe someone else is too. And then I just made a group message and was like, who's in? We're going to do this. And that's kind of how that started. But so if you're feeling that, even remind yourself, the enemy would love for you to be alone, even in that feeling, and say you're the only one who feels this way. But sometimes stepping out and being like, I long to know you and your real struggles, can open the door for them to feel permission to know you as well. Any last encouragements from you?
Yeah, I think I love what Brett's talking about mentorship. I'm a huge proponent of it too. I've had multiple mentors in my life since I came back to Christ senior year of college, and I am so grateful for them. And I think, like you said, that first reach out is usually the toughest, because my thought was always, I don't want to be a burden on this person. I don't want them to have to carry all of my sin struggles too. But man, those who are more spiritually mature than us, they want to care for us too. And so, and like Brett said too, if you're in high school right now, there's some middle schoolers out there. There's some elementary kids that are looking up to you. And so I think in every aspect of life, we have an influence on somebody, and we can be influenced by somebody too. And that burden is not heavy with the believer who wants to care for you and wants to know you and how they can best love you in your season of life. And so I think my encouragement is like Brynn and Brett just said, reach out, because you got people who want to care for you, want to love you, but it takes that first step. And I think if you have that little conviction of needing somebody who's in a spiritually more mature place, that's the Holy Spirit kind of tugging on your heart a little bit. And I really encourage you guys to listen to that. And just find some friends that are at the same level as you too, where you guys can walk that race towards Christ together. That's so special, because whether they're in your circle at school or not, you can still hold each other accountable with things. You can still walk through life together. You can still play sports together, do X, Y, and Z together. And you can really start to build up a community, because others might see that in you guys and they might say, hey, I've been feeling this loneliness too, but I see you guys living this community out. And that's pretty cool. Like I'm a lonely Christian on this school campus too, but I see these guys, they're acting different. Yeah. They're still enjoying life as believers and they're representing Christ well. Man, I wonder what that would look like if I hit them up and asked them to hang out or whatever, you know? So I think, one, your influence is bigger than you know, and other people want to care for you. So reach out to mentors and find community, because a lot of times, like Brynn said too, it won't just show up. Yeah, it's a thing that we have to pursue.
Yeah, step out in faith.
Absolutely. Well, we hope that you guys know, if you're listening and you're like, okay, still feel lonely. This was not meant to be a fix-all to be like, that doesn't feel that way anymore. But the Lord is with you and cares for you and sees you in that, and desires for you to feel known by him ultimately. And so just praying for you guys to believe that this week. And we will see you guys in a couple weeks on the Well StudentCast, asking questions for friends so you don't have to. Bye.
Peace.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Well StudentCast. As always, don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends about us. For more information about the Well Student Ministries, visit thewellcommunity.org/students.